uncle running the business, Dick Cheney a cousin, and the CEO, President George Herbert Walker Bush being the nephew and the cousin of, and George Walker Bush being the great nephew and the cousin of, and Barack Obama being the great great nephew of the founder of Halliburton.
Wow.
You see, is that why we go to war? Or, I mean, it's not conspiracy. It's just
history.
Yeah.
Facts.
And Sam Hinckley, hey man, super sperm dude.
Wow.
You go from indentured servant to great, 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 great granddaddy, etc., to 7 U.S. presidents, 1 vice president. Oh, Warren Buffett is a descendant too.
What?
He's a cousin of the bunch. Let's see, who else? Brad Pitt, the actor, is a cousin.
Brad Pitt too?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So you got a whole bunch of folk up in there. You see how that works?
That's deep.
Yeah, it's deep.
Yes, it is deep, ladies and gentlemen. It's very deep to deep state, to Brad Pitt. I mean, what's going on here, Judge Joe Brown? I tell my kids, there's 2 great judges in this world that I know about. One is the GOAT. He's judge of all time, and that's God. His judge is perfect, 100% on time. But the other one is, on this earth, is Judge Joe Brown. He's like Lysol. He's 99.9%. So when he was throwing these bombs out at me, I was just shocked. I couldn't believe it. Ladies and gentlemen, your time is valuable. We won't waste any more of it. Let's just roll the clip.
See, but we never hear that. And as I pointed out before, there's a good argument to say our main purpose for being in Ukraine is so our president can bribe his way out of a long RICO indictment.
Right.
Which
looks pretty
bad.
Yeah, that looks real
like
bad.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what weapons of mass destruction?
Right.
We went to war 2003 with Iraq that didn't have much of anything to do with 911.
Yeah.
But look what happens at the end of the Iraqi war after 7 years. Halliburton, without bid, gets the rights to exploit Iraqi oil. The last I checked, they were making $2.3 or $4 million net every 7 hours. Now, what's the connection? Who founded Halliburton?
I don't know.
His name was George Herbert Walker, 1946 in Oklahoma.
Really?
He was reviving a previous entity of that name that had been chartered in 1919 but went bankrupt. Who is George Herbert Walker? Uncle Herbie to President George Herbert Walker Bush.
Really?
Now, George Herbert Walker Bush had founded Zapata Oil, also a holding company for the Bush and Walker family called Zapata Offshore Oil, Inc. To give you a clue as to where this goes, it was incorporated in Kuwait. When Hussein nationalized everything in Kuwait, the Bush family was bankrupt, destitute.
Really?
Now, where does this go? There is a very interesting individual whose name is Sam Hinckley. Sam Hinckley sold himself into slavery as an indentured servant to escape Catholic persecution in France. He was a Huguenot.
Okay.
He is the direct ancestor to 7 U.S. presidents and 1 U.S. president, and the following of his direct descendants were alive and hung out together. George Herbert Walker Bush, George Walker Bush, Vice President Dick Cheney, and President Barack Obama.
What?
See, Barack Obama's maternal grandfather was first cousin to George Herbert Walker Bush.
Are you serious?
George Walker Bush and Michelle giggling as he feeds her candy?
Yeah.
That's because there was long and extensive contact when her husband, the former president, was a little kid brought over by his mama, who was cousin to the Bushes and Dick Cheney.
Are you serious?
And then see,
Wow.
Zapata Offshore Oil exploited information from Uncle Herbie as to when an oil field strike was going to come in, and he was loaning nephew's business financing to buy mineral rights for cash, 15%, 25%, 50%, with residents or property owners where he knew there was going to be not a
Really?
strike because they already knew the oil was there, but they were going to start pumping the oil so he would make a fortune. Now, Barry Soetoro slash Barack Obama's mother, who was a cousin of the Bushes too, she was introduced by her mother, Obama's grandmother, who was married to first cousin, grandpa of George Herbert Walker Bush. And Lolo Soetoro was international vice president for Standard Oil. He also ran the death squads for the Indonesian army, and The Hague accused him in the late 60s of being responsible for the deaths of 500,000 plus Indonesians and wanted him for crimes against humanity, but the U.S. stood in. So he had muscle. Standard Oil thought Indonesia might sit on top of the world's largest oil reserves, but American law wouldn't permit them to get in there. So they propped up their international vice president. He had the muscle, and with their backing, he took over the oil industry in Indonesia. And meanwhile, since he was running an assassinations bureau, he also branched out into spying. So, through Obama's grandmother, who channeled the money to him in her position as vice president of a Hawaiian bank, we helped finance Lolo Soetoro during the Nam era to run spy operations in North Vietnam, North Korea, People's Republic of China, Cambodia, and Laos. And you will recall that George Herbert Walker Bush wound up being head of the CIA under President Jerry Ford, partially because he had those connections to Southeast Asia through his cousin in law, Lolo Soetoro, who married his cousin, Barack Obama's mother.
Wow.
So they all grew up together. And when Lolo Soetoro died, supposedly as a result of the cumulative effects of 3 automobile accidents. Yeah, sure. Um, he is one of the 10 or 15 richest men on the planet Earth. So he leaves everything under Indonesian law to a trust fund with 3 equal beneficiaries. One of them we know is Barack Obama. So the richest
What?
person to ever be in the White House is not Donald Trump, it's Barack Obama. Read
Wow.
what Business Insider reports on his net income for the last several years and how he defrayed taking a draw from his trust fund that we can't touch because it operates under Indonesian law.
Oh, Obama.
Yeah. And interesting, the right hates him, but there is a right wing think tank called the Heritage Foundation. What they do is every year they issue a report card, a conservative report card on all of the members of the House and the Senate. For the 2 years Obama was in, he got their third highest rating for conservative votes. He voted
Really?
less than any other United States senator, but he got a 96% plus the second place man got 96% plus a little more, and the number one man got low 97%. So he voted more conservatively than 97 U.S. senators.
Wow. Obama?
But yeah, Obama. But you see, he's an opportunist because he comes from a spy background. Spies got to lie to do what they do in their job.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Wow.
have the specter of George Herbert Walker Bush, George Herbert Walker running this Enron Halliburton thing with energy, George Herbert, no, George Walker Bush, Dick Cheney, who is CEO of Uncle Herbie's corporation, Halliburton. You see how that
Wow.
works?
That's deep.
It, yeah, it's deep. Uncle running the business, Dick Cheney, a cousin, and the CEO, President George Herbert Walker Bush being the nephew and the cousin of, and George
Wow.
Walker Bush being the great nephew and the cousin of, and Barack Obama being the great nephew of the founder of Halliburton.
Wow. That's crazy. So do you think
Yeah.
so do you think that the Kuwait war was, I mean, I always thought that George Bush wanted to go, the first George Bush wanted to go in and do it, but he never got a chance.
But the first one had sense. He backed off
Okay.
once but he did not want to destabilize the region.
Gotcha.
Political science dictates you do not destabilize a region because what takes over in the chaos is 9 times out of 10 a lot worse than what you were dealing with.
Right. Okay. Okay.
But George Walker Bush was not necessarily a good student. He had a problem with drugs and alcohol, and
Mm-hmm.
he didn't get it. He wanted to cement his name with the family. So 2007, when Halliburton got the contract rights to exploit Iraqi oil, what wound up happening is 2.4, 2.3, $2.7 million net every 7 hours.
That's crazy. Every 7 hours.
7 hours for the family business.
Wow.
So, did we fight Iraq for a legitimate reason or to keep the Bushes in place? And then
Mm-hmm.
see if you
Mm-hmm.
want to deal with history. Why
Mm-hmm.
is there this mess with Kuwait?
Right.
You ever heard of Lawrence of Arabia?
Yes.
Okay. He did this thing in World War One going around in Arabia. What his mission was dictated by Winston Churchill. He was to find a source of oil that Britain could seize and exploit.
Mm.
Their problem is somebody didn't think. You shoot an artillery piece, a naval cannon at long range, it goes up, and then at the end of the flight, it comes down steeply.
Mm.
The English forgot that the shell's coming down, so they put all the armor on the side of their warships in the Royal Navy and forgot to armor the decks. So they got pretty badly beat around at a war battle, World War One. That's in May 31st, 1916, called Jutland or Skagerrak for the Germans.
Mm.
And some of the English capital ships were just obliterated, blew up, no survivors, 2 or 3 survivors.
Wow.
And they wanted to go to oil fuel from coal so they could use the weight save to up armor the decks. They couldn't tell anybody because,
Oh.
you got eggshell ships that are supposed to be badass.
Mm-hmm.
So Lawrence was supposed to find a source of oil for Winston Churchill, who was first Lord of the Admiralty at the time. Well, he found them. And what happened is Churchill came back after the war and harangued English Parliament to go in, and they sent the Royal Marines in, and they seized southern Iraq. They split it off, set up a puppet government, and they called it Kuwait. They
Really?
set up Anglo-Persian Oil Company with a great deal of capital because the English government bought 51% of the stock.
Mm.
Anglo-Persian Oil Company, still the signs are green with the yellow letters BP,
Okay.
British Petroleum.
Really?
Yeah. So that was set up for the English to get a supply of oil for their navy so they could up armor their
Their decks.
warships by
Wow.
converting them to oil. So there were in 1990 quite a number of Iraqis that had a living memory of Kuwait being part of their nation and got seized by the worst kind of imperialism, but nobody got told that.
Mm-hmm.
And also a little incentive of that's where Zapata Offshore Oil Inc. was chartered. So when Hussein nationalized everything, the Bushes, the Walkers, the
Oh.
Sotoros, they all
Mm.
went broke until they got
Oh.
it back. So
Right.
you see, is that why we go to war? Or, I mean, it's not conspiracy. It's
No,
just,
it's history.
it's,
It's
yeah.
facts.
And Sam Hinckley, hey man, super sperm dude.
Wow. I guess so. I guess so. Wow. He that.
You go from indentured servant to great, 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 great granddaddy, etc., to 7 U.S. presidents, one vice
Wow.
president. Oh, Warren Buffett is a descendant too. He's a
What?
cousin of the bunch. Let's see, who else? Brad Pitt, the actor, is a
No.
cousin too.
Brad Pitt too?
Yeah.
Oh my
So you got a whole bunch
gosh.
of folk up in there.
What is going on? I can't believe
So
this is
you
crazy.
look at it like, and you can look it up under Wikipedia. They even have a thing in there about Sam Hinckley, Hinkley, late of Cape Cod. So
Really?
it's like, dude, damn.
This is wow. So it's been this way for a while then.
Yes.
And it's not now how would it stop? How do we get that to stop? Throw people like you in office? I mean,
Well,
it sounds too
one of
deep.
the things we need to do is have our news media exercise what it has been given to them in the First Amendment responsibly. Keep the public informed.
Right, right.
You don't want to get switched into a propaganda engine.
Sure.
What I've noticed is what used to be a headline for National Enquirer, the Globe or Star,
Mm-hmm.
becomes typical reporting today.
Yeah.
The English tabloid thing.
Mm.
We have forgotten about editorialization because all of the news is really not news, it's an editorial. In other words, newspapers once strove to be as accurate
Yeah.
in their reporting as possible and then editorialize on it in the editorial section. Now,
Right. Right.
instead of it used to be there was an alleged armed robbery on such and such street in such and such city occurring at such and such time. Police indicate they have no suspects at this moment. Stay tuned for further news as it happens. Okay. Nowadays it goes, once again, we have these people out of control, blah, 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 because
Right.
guns are being sold at gun shows and blah, 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 blah. Marijuana is not legalized and
Sure. I get
people
it.
having to go rob to sustain their weed habits,
Right.
et cetera, which is,
Yeah.
like, come on.
Yeah, it's different. Definitely.
See, it's what used to be on the last page, last column of the last section of a newspaper is now front page.
Yep. Exploded and blown up into something it doesn't
Yeah, it
have
was
to
a
be.
gossip column.
Right.
That was just looked at as put it back there. It's unsavory, but we have to have it
Yep.
if we're to be a well-rounded newspaper. Now it's on the front
Like
page.
you said, it does. It sounds like the Inquirer. There it is, ladies and gentlemen, Judge Joe Brown. I really hope you enjoyed that. So please remember to click that notification button and hit that like and subscribe while you're at it. We will see you on the next one. I want to thank you all for watching. Y'all have a blessed day. Bye-bye.